Welcome to Working Dragon Mystic, where we discuss real, metaphysical, and occult knowledge so that you can manifest real and tangible results in your life. This week, we're going to continue our series on the Goetia. We're going to be talking about the 16th spirit of the Goetia, Zepar. Okay, before we jump right into this, I'd encourage you, if you enjoy this type of content, occult knowledge, magical knowledge, if it interests you, whether you practice, you're beginning to practice, or you just like to research it for fun, consider hitting the subscribe button below and clicking the bell icon so you get a notification anytime that we release a new video or we go live. We do live streams on Sundays around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I would highly encourage you to join us. It's a lot of fun, great conversation, some good humor. It's both educational and entertaining. Great way to end your weekend and relax before you get the weekend started. And we do also offer some online courses if you're interested. That link's below. And if you'd like to support the channel, we do have channel memberships and a Patreon. And we also have an online community, a gilded community, where everybody gets together. We share ideas. We talk about research. Ask questions. A really great group of people over there, and you can find that link in the About section. All right, now all the obligatory YouTubing done, let's get to it. What do you say? All right, so Zepar. Zepar is an interesting entity. In the Goetia, he is described as being seen wearing red apparel and armor like a soldier. Now, many of the people I work with and talk to and all that, we all have compared, and yes, the red seems to be the major color here. He does tend to pop up using red apparel a lot. I can say that when we say it says armor like a soldier, a lot of people are expecting kind of a knight in medieval armor, but he tends to be a lightly armored soldier, to even cloth or leather wearing, which, given the time period that supposedly the Goetia comes from, we can't actually confirm, that would make a lot of sense. And also, these entities are going to be multicultural, multi-generational, so don't lock yourself into a time period. You may be surprised what ends up showing up. But it does seem to follow that red apparel to red militaristic looking apparel. Okay? Now, I have actually seen this entity just show up in a red suit, which I thought was weird until one of my colleagues pointed out. If you think of the British during like the American Revolution and all that, they were called the Redcoats for a reason. They actually wore, red cloth uniforms. So depending on what you would view as the uniform, that actually makes a lot of sense. So yeah, and I've also seen him do a red play on some other military dress uniforms, which surprisingly look pretty good. I didn't think an all red uniforms would look as good as he can make them look. Maybe he can just pull the color off. I know I couldn't pull that color off. I'd at least have to do black pants and a black shirt to make it work, but he can pull it off. Anyway, enough about fashion. Let's get into the entity. Okay, now we always go over the correspondence for these entities. In the Goetia, the typical correspondence for Zepar, or it can also be pronounced Zepar, but I hear it most often pronounced Zepar. Zepar is the rank of Duke. The metal associated with him is copper. The planet most associated with him is Venus. And the color most associated with him is green. Yes, it's green. Even though he loves to show up in that red, his color seems to end up green in most correspondences when you start doing research on him. I've always found that interesting. Anytime you get those massive color identifiers that differ from the correspondence, I always find that interesting personally. But then that probably goes to my opinion on correspondences, which that's another video. And of course, the element he is most associated with is Earth. All right. Pretty straightforward for this Duke of the Goetia, isn't it? So what are the areas in which Zepar can help you with in your life? Okay, so I'll be honest with you. I have heard a lot of magicians refer to Zepar as the Tinder hookup deity or entity. And it's kind of funny because when you really look at what his skill set is largely, not only, but largely focused on, it really comes down to, yeah, sex, getting laid, that kind of stuff. In fact, the first one is attract brief liaisons of a sexual nature. Let's be honest, that is a fancy, polite, elegant way to say one night stand. Let's be honest. That's what that is. The next one is help make you more appealing to others in terms of brief encounters. Now, these encounters can be friendly, they can be social, but it also does tend to lean again right back to that brief one night stand hookup culture crap. Sorry, I'm not one for hookup culture, just so y'all know that. Next, it can compel infertility in men or women for a brief period of time. Hey, look, we finally got to something that's just not about getting laid. Though I have heard a lot of magicians attempt to use this instead of using proper, safe practices. This is generally intent to like screw with an enemy, because back at the time the Goetia was originally written, your line was important, all these things. This day and age, do not use this as a safety measure. Please do not be that stupid. Please, please, please. If you are not ready for children or to take responsibilities for adult activities, don't use this. Please use proper safe methods. Please don't be stupid. And next, and finally, and I had to put this one on here. I had to, after the other three, I had to make sure this is a point that we covered. It is a point that is not covered enough about this entity, and we had to. This entity can actually help in finding true love and a life partner for marriage. Yes, after all these other things we talked about, which is pretty much one night stand, hookup culture, BS, this entity can actually assist in finding that life partner. Now, everyone I know who's used this entity for that, this entity is really good at having you meet a lot of people really quick so that you can actually develop a relationship, get to know them, and then pick one and move, settle down. So this is helpful, but it's also tricky for a lot of people this day and age, because when we're presented with so many options, a lot of us this day and age, unfortunately, don't know how to narrow that down to pick just one to focus on. And oftentimes we're even worried about closing the door on other options until we know. And that kind of buffet style thing, it can work. It really can work to find someone. But if you don't learn how to focus, let's be honest, it's probably going to be very, very hard to actually find someone. So even though this entity can help you find that person, you do have to understand that this entity is going to present more of a buffet style concept, which again might be why they refer to him often as the Tinder entity, because of the whole Tinder app thingamajig. But you yourself, you have to be the one accountable and doing the focus work. They're giving you the options. They're giving you the potentials to screen through. You're still having to do the screening and all that good stuff. They can help you in making those choices, but you still ultimately are the one making the choices. So do remember that. All right, next we need to get the sigil. Everyone wants the sigil. We're going to make sure we have a sigil. We'll get that up here on the screen there. All right. Now, I want to go ahead and get the un out of here. Many of you know I don't use uns too much. I like to experiment with them and do some testing with them, but in my day-to-day practice, I don't use them too much. But so many people do use them, and they are helpful. They are a great tool that we always include them here in these videos. So the un for Zepar is, and forgive me on this one. This is one I occasionally get tripped up on, so we'll try and get through it. You know what? I won't even edit out if I screw it up so we can all laugh together, so bear with me. Once I get the rhythm, we'll make sure to keep that going. Leon Ramak Kata Zepar. Leon Ramak Kata Zepar. Leon Ramak Kata Zepar. Leon Ramak Kata Zepar. All right. Now, of course, we had it up here on the screen, so you don't just have to worry about old Drake's bad pronunciations of things, right? Don't get me wrong. I love the fact of who I am. I love my accent. I love, all that. It is true I don't always pronounce things the best, but we do our best to make sure we have them up here on the screen. So, yeah, we'll make sure that that is there. All right. And then for the closing of this video, we need to discuss my experiences with this spirit, don't we? I'll be honest, this is one of the spirits of the Goetia I have worked the absolute least with. All my workings with this entity were more about just Goetic path workings where I'm trying to work with the 72 spirits and get to know them, talk to them, learn from them. As far as actually utilizing this spirit in my life, I really haven't. I'm one of those individuals who somehow tripped and fell into marrying my high school sweetheart. Me and my wife have been married for 22 beautiful years, and it's one of those things where I never had to deal with the hookup culture. I never had to deal with the dating and all that in my work and professional life after high school, because somehow I met someone as crazy as me all the way back then, married them, and it worked out. It's crazy. My family did not think it would work out. Oh dear God, did they try to talk me out of it? But in my stubbornness of my youth, somehow I was certain I knew what I was doing. And apparently that's at least one thing I got right. Mom, you're right. I didn't get everything right, but I got that one right, Mom. So this is an entity I really haven't worked with. It's just one that I've really not had to deal a lot with, because I never had any issues finding my life partner. I never had to deal with the hookup culture, all that stuff. So this is an entity where I've not worked with them a lot. That's it. There's at least one instance where I have directly worked with this entity, and let's just say there was an individual who was giving my family a very, 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 very hard time. And this individual was also working very, very hard to have a kid. And I used this entity to essentially see to it that until they apologized and or at least backed off the people in my family that they were going after, that they wouldn't have that kid. That is one thing I did do. But that is the only thing that I personally recall. And I've actually sat down for days thinking on this, other than just conversations with this entity and getting to know them personally. What workings have I actually used them for? And that is really the only one I can think of. And I know that's a mean trick to do. I know that's not nice to do. But at the same time, what they were doing to my loved ones and my family members was considerably worse. So I held hostage the one thing that I knew would get them to their attention. And actually, once they backed off, so did I. And that individual now has a beautiful daughter who is actually quite intelligent, surprisingly, considering the parents. Sorry, okay. But so this is actually one where I haven't had a lot of experience with. But like I did say, I have seen this one appear in, cloth military style uniforms quite often. Though I've had colleagues mention the British redcoats. They've never presented in the British red uniforms to me personally. So there's that. But there's always that red, a red dominant in the uniform and or armor, because it has presented in armor heavier than cloth. But it's not the norm, and that tends to throw people off. They're expecting, most people when we think of armor, we think of half plate, breastplates, full plate, all these kinds of heavier, almost medieval style armor types. And we forget armor has had many iterations throughout the centuries. So be ready when you are working with this entity for that. All right. Now, before we close here today, I will say if you do work with this entity, when it comes to hookup culture and those kinds of things, I do not pass judgment. To each their own, as long as they're not hurting another person, is always my 2 cents. That said, I will say be careful. Keep it safe. Don't get yourself in some trouble that you don't want to be in. Use your brain. But other than that, that is the only real critique I will give on this. And if you do work with this entity, like I said, use your head, keep it safe. And I wish you the best of luck in your life and in your practice. And until next time, I'm Drake, and this has been Working Dragon Mystic. Take care. Bye-bye.